But earmuff, you stay on hard.
All right. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to the BCSN SWAC Baseball Championship Preview Edition, live from Atlanta, Georgia. Bryan Fulford, Charles Bishop, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, and AD Drew. We're all in Atlanta. I promise. We are all in Atlanta, although only 3 of us are actually in the stadium where they will watch this afternoon's SWAC Baseball Championship between the Jackson State Tigers going for their 17th SWAC baseball title and the Grambling State Tigers going for their 10th SWAC baseball championship. Gentlemen, sorry I couldn't be there with you, but how's everybody doing this morning?
Doing well, Brian. I tell you what, it's been a long 5 days here at the SWAC Baseball Tournament. Running on fumes, but looking forward to today's game.
Yes, indeed. Charles Bishop's been there since the first pitch of game 1. Game 15. That's right, Charles. Game 15 for you today?
It is game 15. Yes, it is.
Awesome. We will talk about some of the more interesting observations over the course of the 15 games. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, for people who are like, where's Doc at? We ain't seen Doc in a minute. Doc, there he is. How you doing, Doc? You looking good?
I'm doing well. Brought me out of sabbatical. I was here just relaxing with my son with a vacation. And they said, no, Doc, it's time to get you back on the mic. So I'm glad to be here representing inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop as he's out, I would say on assignment, but I guess he's actually working. So he gets full credit for this. We'll write this out and put it on his paperwork for his dissertation and assignments and quarterly review to make sure he's good. But we're going to talk about Mike Washington. I'm not sure where he's been or where he's at. He's kind of lost in the wilderness. He keeps sending me this paperwork saying that, he's working. I don't know on what, but we're going to leave that alone. But it's good to be here with the BCS sports team with SportsWrap, getting this day going because it's championship Sunday. And we got a little bit of the new. And now we got the old coming back and starting over. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all goes down.
Yep. And AD Drew, who always seems to be in Georgia on a Sunday, floating around doing somewhere away from his home studio. So it's no surprise that on a Sunday we got Drew in Atlanta. Drew, what's good? How we doing this morning?
Man, I am doing great, Ryan. I'm doing great. And I need you to go ahead and confess to everybody. The reason that you decided not to come to the stadium today is because today is the Indianapolis 500. So you wanted to support the hometown and stay home and watch the Indianapolis 500. Or have you traded teams and decided to watch the Coca-Cola 600 today? Or are you watching Monaco to racing to go along with everything that we have going on here in HBCU baseball?
Or is he crying on his pillow because of the Pacers?
See, Doc, you see,
I wasn't going to go there, Doc, because I wasn't going to say it, Rattlers. I was about to say, that's bad enough, fam. You gave it away yesterday. But then he had to go home and watch the Pacers. 18-point lead and oh my God, it just disappeared.
And I will say this, Brian was in the stadium yesterday. He was here. He literally got off the plane and came directly here. So his ability to work and get in it, he's committed. But I understand when things don't go your way, things change.
Had a Simone Stanley day.
The Jinx.
Look,
We pulled out of the hotel in the Lynx.
I got people.
Women's basketball program, WNBA. They were getting ready to play their game against Atlanta Dream today. Pulling out.
Yeah, I got people in my messages blaming me for that. I was like, I had no control, so she wasn't talking to anybody. I swear. But anyway, look, yes, Drew, I appreciate you trying to cover for me. I hadn't thought about the Indy 500 thing, but yeah, that is where I would have gone until Doc burst my bubble there. Yes, it was a very hard day watching FAMU lose the way they did, and then to combine it with the Pacers losing the way they did. One of my darkest sports Saturdays of 2024. So I'm hoping there aren't many more of those in the fall. So look, congratulations to Jackson State. Congratulations to Grambling. Let's talk about how these teams got amazing over the last Charles Ford.
Touch a chord, Brian.
I was saying how many days has it been? 4 days. You not hear me?
No.
3.
The Gremlin's trying to get you, man. The Gremlin's trying to get you.
I know.
It seems like you were talking about how did these teams get here.
Yes, so I wanted to we kind of go through maybe each bracket and kind of take a look at how we got here. Obviously, we can start with the A bracket as we see it. As you see the Jackson State Tigers moving their way, winning their first 2 games, having to deal with Bethune-Cookman in 3 games. Charles, I'll let you kind of break down what we've seen from bracket A. What's kind of been your impression of Jackson State's run to the championship game?
The first thing that jumps out about Jackson State is their team speed, and that was on display early. They put a lot of pressure on defenses, but they came into this tournament, they were hitting the ball, and they jumped all over Texas Southern, jumped all over Prairie View, and it's been the bottom of the order that's been really setting up the top of the order, and the guys right in the meat of things, they've really been moving runners along, but I believe they run ruled Texas Southern. I think, they came back with another powerful game against Prairie View. And then the very interesting thing is the way Bethune-Cookman and Jackson State, they know each other so well. They're mirror images of each other. But Jackson State was able to prevail and get through Bethune-Cookman because I thought that was going to be every bit as what it was, and it proved out to be the case in terms of getting beyond Bethune-Cookman.
What about you, Doc?
Yeah, I think the story of the tournament for me are a couple of things. One, just how big hitting was in this tournament. We came in talking about talking about the pitching in the arms, and we tend to lean towards the East Division in terms of what those arms are able to do. And in a lot of ways, that's why coming into the tournament, you gave the edge to probably FAMU. And then closely behind in a lot of people's eyes is Bethune-Cookman because the depth that they have in the arms, and obviously they can hit the ball. But the ability of Jackson State and Grambling State, for that matter, to really be able to, whenever they may have faltered on the mound, they could hit themselves out of it, whether it was due to the speed and a combination of getting big hits, or Grambling being able to do both and add in the long ball and being able to go deep, particularly with Buford, which I'm sure we'll get in a little more in terms of the tournament he's having. So that's one thing. The other thing is the natural framework that even in the tournament, it seems to get back to a weekend series. Basically get to a championship game, you got to find a way to win either 2 against the team, and whether that is 2 straight, or 2 out of 3, which happened on both sides with Grambling taking 2 out of 3 against FAMU, and then Jackson State taking 2 out of 3 against Bethune-Cookman. So you're going to still have to win a series on the weekend that we're traditionally used to throughout this matchup to get that done. So that's the other thing that kind of stood out to me in terms of this tournament. And then the third factor will be that, as I kind of introduced when I came into the show, is that we're back to the old. Some of the teams that have carried the conference, for a lack of better words. There was a period of time until Texas Southern finally knocked down the door, and then you saw Prairie View, Alcorn get in the mix, of Alabama State. And this is pre-expansion. We're literally the only 3 teams when you talk about the SWAC in its current iteration. Before expansion was Jackson State, Grambling, and Southern, with Southern being the king of the hill. The Yankees, as you talked about the other day.
Southern and Yankees.
And
Jackson State, St. Louis Cardinals. And then you would have to make Grambling the Dodgers.
Yep. I like that. I like that. And we'll sneak Prairie View in there with being the Atlanta Braves. That's good or bad. We'll talk about that later. If you're an Atlanta Braves fan, you relate to
very interesting.
when we talk about those correlations. But the point that I'm making in there is that you're kind of to the new. I think that's fascinating when you talk about the history of the SWAC. And then as expansion took place, you had the Florida schools come in, and everybody knew that it was going to take baseball to the next level. And FAMU and Bethune-Cookman literally cracked the door last year when they made it to the championship game. And FAMU kicked it in and brought home the championship. And this year they were right there on the edge, but you see it come back to Jackson State Grambling. So I think those are the 4 things that have come to mind over this tournament play.
How about Drew? Drew, what are your observations of the A bracket?
Well, I'm gonna kind of go a little bit more in general when I go into this, but let's talk about FAMU. 3 years in SWAC baseball, they've been in the Final Four all 3 years.
Yeah.
Bethune, they've been to the Final Four two of those 3 years, not able to make it the first year into the Final Four. And obviously we know in the second year, those 2 teams happen to face up against each other for the championship. So that's some of that new blood that you're talking about with the expansion. That's number 1. Number 2, I want you to take a look at something, and I may be stepping ahead of us when I say this, but Jackson State's bats started off hot in this tournament, and then it's like the pitching took over after the bats took over. Yeah. Jackson State scored double digits in their first 2 games, and then they won some squeakers throughout the rest of the tournament. Grambling, the exact opposite. It's like the pitching kind of started them out, and now the bats have gotten hot. In 2 of the last 3 games, they've scored in double digits. With their 3rd game, them scoring 9 runs. So, it's going to be interesting today. Like I said, I know I'm stepping ahead of to see how this kind of plays out with the bats starting hot, and then the pitcher taking over for one team, and then the pitcher starting hot, and then the bats taking over for the other team. Charles, like, you want to throw something in on that?
And it's so interesting. There was a rain delay that happened.
We've had 2 rain delays in this tournament.
Yeah, and I think you've seen a tale of 2 Gramblings.
Post-rain delay.
Post-rain delay Gramblings. They have been on a tear with regards to the bats. And, I mean, it's been phenomenal to sit back and watch. And, one of the things we're saying on the broadcast is, after that rain delay, it's like Grambling got a chance to reset, just remember who they were as a team, and that team prior took over.
It's like they washed all their sins away.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's like their sins got washed away. So, they have been a different team since that rain delay. And like the top of the order, guys like Cameron Walker, Tiger Borum, and of course Cameron Buford, you can't get them out. I mean, they are as prolific as a 1-2-3 as any I've seen in this tournament.
Will Cameron Buford get pitched to today?
You better not. I wouldn't try.
Unless you have nowhere to put him.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to feed him stuff.
Well, it almost gets to that very bar.
I
versus the 2 or 3, maybe 4. If you're not careful. So, great question. Last thing I put out there, this is to you, Bryan, because you always looked at this, and I'm a stats guy, and I go a little deeper. When you talk about the East-West matchups. Obviously, one of the things you talked about in the tournament that there'll be a new scheduling format in 2025 where there'll be crossover. Both you and AD have been begging for this in a lot of ways, trying to constructively put it out. Well, it looks like the coaches watched the show and they've been listening, and they finally convinced the ADs, or at least a number of them, to get it passed in the presidents. And in some format, you'll get the crossover. We don't know exactly what that looks like with the number of games head to head. We'll figure that out when it comes out. But I wanted to talk about the East versus the West. The East dominated the West, except for one team that actually got all 4 wins for the West, which obviously is Grambling playing in the championship. But up to that point, at one point in this tournament, it was 6 wins for the Eastern Division to 1 win for the West. And that first win, obviously, was Grambling earlier. And then they came through the tournament as you look at the other side of the bracket, which is Grambling picking up the last 3 wins, 2 out of 3, most importantly, against FAMU, to ultimately end up in this championship matchup. So kudos to you, Bryan, in terms of something that we need to look at inside the picture. And it'll be fascinating as in the offseason to talk about, particularly when the schedule comes out, what does this look like in terms of, for me, seeding? I don't think it's going to change much of the top 8 teams. It did, but what does the seeding look like? We can get in that whenever you're ready to talk about what the seeding would have done versus what we see now. Go ahead, Bryan.
Well, look, I love you guys. See, look, we have jumped all over the place. We went off. I was just initially hoping we go A bracket to B bracket, but somehow we started talking about everything in between, and then Doc breaking news. I'm like, man, okay. So let me go back to
Bryan. This is a typical Sunday for you and I, because we have a script where we 2 hours into the show, realize we want to cover one topic.
2 minutes into the show, the script out the window.
All right, so let me peel back a couple things. One, I want to come back to Jackson State and Bethune, because Jackson State was how many outs away from being knocked out? Is that correct? They were Bethune
was the one who was should have been knocked out. Yeah, Bethune was 3 outs from. Jackson State was 3 outs from not playing yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Thank you.
And then you really have to say the momentum shifted with the ejection of Coach Johnson and help you out with the
Webster.
And it wasn't that it was a big dramatic shift, but it's like something happened. It was just so minute
to the momentum they got.
Exactly. That's probably a better way. It paused the momentum that they had versus shifting the momentum. Don't know if the decisions made in the 9th inning would have been any different had Coach Johnson been there making the calls or not. But Bethune was able to come back and tie it in the 9th and ultimately win it on the walk-off walk in the 10th.
Well, the interesting thing, and you talk about that 9th inning, a lot of people texted, the pitching change there, going into the 9th and things of that nature, in terms of, do you stay with the all conference performer and Christian Womble, or do you go to the lefty? They went to the lefty. So you never know how it would have played out if Womble had stayed in, things of that nature.
But does the pitching coach control all of that anyway, or is that Coach Jackson? Because I know he calls the pitches.
Well, yeah, the pitching coach does call the pitches, but everything goes through Coach Johnson. So you just never know how that might have been a shift or a deflator or whatever the case might be.
Absolutely.
When
especially when we talk about like us sideline coaches. Hindsight is 2020. Always going. If he goes and it works out, you'd be like, "Oh, brilliant move." If it doesn't, you'd be like, "Why did you make that move?"
And speaking of sideline coaches, how many times with each of these teams that we've seen here, why did they pitch to him? Why did they not walk him? And there's been at least one player on every team that sitting up in that press room that we have said, why did they pitch to him? Be it a hit or be it the long fly.
So we will address that elephant in the room that Drew just brought up. I'm still don't ever say I don't give love and credit to Jackson State, because here I am. I'm still going back to Jackson State again and overcoming that. Whether you want to call it a collapse, whether you want to call it the whatever you want to call it, where a game just kind of fell apart. your coach gets ejected, the coach gets ejected, the player gets ejected, and they just come back the next day, regroup, reset, and get a big win. I thought that was huge for Jackson State. Again, Jackson State, who started off really well, 2-0 to start. That was huge. Yesterday's win was huge for Jackson State.
But I think the thing, and one of the great things about being embedded with each coach's dugouts is you get so much insight because you build a rapport and they start talking to you. And one thing that everybody has said, a SWAC baseball game is never over until the last 3 outs are made in the ninth inning, and that's just the way it plays out. And these guys, they're sitting on the edge of their seats literally until you get the last out.
Yeah, because yesterday we saw a Tuesday night softball game at the Industrial League breakout between FAMU and Grambling State. I mean, it was like every time somebody scored, it was always 3 runs. It was like, okay, get a man on, boom. You know how you got a 4 home run limit? Boom, let's hit my home run now.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, you don't normally use this term in baseball, but it was a game of runs.
Exactly.
And I said that, it was like, you never knew what was about to happen,
Yeah, you would think somebody would get the major momentum, take control, and you look up and the other team would fight back and even that control or get the momentum themselves. And so it was a heavyweight fight. I mean, you start out in the first inning in top where Grambling puts up 3, and you're like, oh, bats. And I think they hit. I had notes then that they had 5 hits to score those 3 runs and left the bases loaded.
Yeah.
Then you go to the bottom.
You get 3 runs on 1 hit.
Yeah, 1 hit, but they get the 3 runs to tie it up, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be one of those games.
And so just in case anybody missed where Doc transitioned to, of course, yesterday, we had 2, I guess we can call the semifinal games, 2 of them. Yep. Jackson State over Bethune, and then Grambling and FAMU. I'd say one thing, and I'm gonna make this very brief, and then I'm gonna talk more about Grambling. This is a rivalry. I heard a lot of debate on the TV broadcast about whether FAMU and Grambling was a rivalry, and I know FAMU had owned that series, but this is officially now a rivalry as Grambling with winning 2 of the last 3 games, and really in the season splitting. I mean, if you think back to the regular season, they played 3 times. They played 3 times during the regular season. Every game was a 1-run game. And what did I say, Drew? I said, don't sleep on the fact that had happened, right? And so what do you get? Even though you beat Grambling the first time, boom. Then, so Grambling, that is a rivalry. That's all I'll say there. Congratulations to Grambling. But
Brian, when doesn't FAMU interject themselves into somebody's rivalry? Like that, like they're rival for whomever. I don't care whether it's football, basketball, baseball. Now Grambling comes up with a rivalry in baseball.
Let's stop right there. FAMU has to win before we can have a rival in basketball. Okay. Now football and baseball, I give it to you. Basketball, we gotta get
That's pretty good. And interesting, all those games have been basically in Atlanta.
Yes. Yes. So this is our first SWAC rival is Grambling. I will flat out say it and it's in Atlanta. So that's great. But the fact that Grambling State has had to win 2 games to get to the championship in the most dramatic, unbelievable fashion,
right,
at least for non-Grambling State fans, is unbelievable. If you're a baseball fan, you just know how the baseball gods work. But the Alabama State game, unbelievable. They win 11 to 10, I believe. What was it? A 3-run shot or 3 runs scored?
3-run shot, RBI, home run. Top of another drama.
And then
Buford.
For it to happen again. I mean, talk about Grambling and what I don't know. I heard you guys talk about Buford being, I don't know if they have a tournament most outstanding player, but he sure should be in running.
Oh, he's certainly in the running. This is one of the few occasions. I know they don't do this anymore, but I think, just as a media person, and we can put this out there, this is one of the few times where you can make the argument regardless if Grambling wins or not, that he could be an MVP, MOP of this tournament in terms of his batting percentage, what he does, and his play at third. He's been tremendous on the field in terms of his defensive presence. But every time they need him to get a big hit, to push the game out of control or to get themselves back into it. I mean, against Alabama State, another fierce matchup when it looked like Alabama State was getting back to what we saw them last year. And I know regular season, you kind of question, much like Southern, kind of up and down. And you were like, can they get hot? Well, they seemed like they were getting some momentum. And in that game, what you saw against FAMU yesterday, he did against Alabama State. And we're in the media room again, in the suites for me, and Granger came up and talked about that. That's the AD of Texas Southern University. He's sitting up there, and he said, "Is that your guy?" I said, "Yeah, that's beautiful." He said, "Don't pitch to him." Before I could get my comments, Ryan McGinty said, "But the guy behind him is hot. He hit all day long." And I looked up and I said, "Don't." And before I could get pitched, right out. Ron dropped his head. And Grady said, "I told you." I said, "I'm not even a baseball coach. I'm a basketball man. Don't pitch to him." So we all yesterday were in there again, the sort of Granger, Dr. Granger. And we had the guy that's actually responsible in a lot of ways for help bringing this tournament here. And as we've kind of heard around here also, it seems like the basketball tournament is pretty much all but done. They hadn't released it, so take that what it is. It's coming here. And he was in there. He said the same thing. He said, "Dr. Cavil, is that the guy that you talking about?" I said, "Buford." I said, "Yes."
Leave him alone.
He said, "Don't pitch to him." And before I could get out the words, I agree. He started. Well, he did it. He did it. The family folks got quiet. The fans in front. I was like, "Wow, he did
Let
it."
me just read some of his numbers, and in case you don't know what we're talking about, we're talking Cameron Buford of Grambling State, redshirt senior,
all-time home run King at Grambling State
from South Holland, Illinois. In this tournament, right? And I'm going to go back to the first game. Let's see, going back, first game against Alabama State. He was 1 for, hold on, I think I had it just pulled up here. Hold on a second. Unless,
get these numbers up.
Yeah, I got the numbers here because I was just looking at them. Give me a second here. Okay. 1 for 3, 2 runs scored against Alabama State. Then against FAMU, 1 for 3, had a home run, two RBIs. That's the second game. Then third game against Alabama State, he was 2 for 5, 4 RBIs, including the home run. Then, of course, in game 2 against FAMU, he goes 3 for 3, 2 RBIs, a run scored. And then, of course, last night against FAMU, he was 3 for 6, 5 RBIs, a home run, 2 runs scored. Now,
it's 13 RBIs.
Yeah, you in just this tournament alone. What'd you say the number is in this tournament alone?
I think it was 13 RBIs, and when I just added up what you said, I could have been
Let me see, 7, 11. Yes, that's 13 RBIs, 3 home runs, and if you count the hits, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hits. 10 hits. I mean,
so if I'm not mistaken, he's his home run total is right under a young man from Bethune-Cookman. I think Ramses Cordova's hit 4, and Cameron Buford now is at 3. So,
you mean in this tournament?
In this tournament, yeah.
It don't seem like he only got 3. It seems like he got about 8.
It feels that way because his home runs have been huge moments. So.
I mean, he's hitting Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds type home runs when he's hitting them. They're not, I'm looking at 350 to right center, and it's 382 to left center. He's not going 355. He's going 4 plus every time he's hitting the ball out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emmett Jones said he's from the South Chicago suburbs. Grambling's had good ties into that Chicago area. Just to answer your question, Jeremiah, yes, the game is on ESPN Plus, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Any other talking points regarding some of the games or matchups from bracket B before we kind of shift into a couple other things as we look ahead to this matchup?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think the fact that Grambling was able to overcome Alabama State, I think that was a huge momentum thing with regards to them going forward, in that they were able to eliminate Alabama State. And they like I said, we keep talking about the rain delay, but they have just taken off seemingly from that game.
I'll add in this factor is that you have is the ability of Jackson State and Grambling State to win different style games. They won a couple of low score games where they battled it out, pitched, made a couple of key hits, key moves, and what we would see is low scoring games. Then they had also games where they had to hit and win in high scoring games. So the ability to navigate the tournament and win in both styles is always fascinating to me. Because you tend to come in and say, all right, for this team to win, they're going to have to hit. Or for this team to win, they're going to have to pitch. Because that's the style that they have come over the season and been able to get it done. But the fact that Jackson State and Grambling could win in both fashions and had to in this tournament speaks volumes of why they're here on Championship Sunday.
All right. Just start talking. It'll shift.
Now I'm trying to see how I disappeared off the screen.
It shifts automatically.
Oh, got you. I got you. Anyway, one thing that I was going to bring up is, 50 is the number to look at today. 30 to 50. That's the pitch. If your first pitch today can get you about 50 pitches, and what inning are you in when they get to that 50? Then can you get 30 out of number 2, whoever the number 2 person comes to the mound?
Okay.
Then after that,
it's a
how many you got in your arm? Can you get an out? Can you give me 15? Can you give me? Look, I just need you to get this one lefty out, or I just need you to get this one righty out. That's what I need you to look at and focus on. I think 50. Both these starters, because we still don't know who's starting today. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, can we get 50 out of any of these starters today before these coaches have to pull them? And then somebody might be the rubber man. You might be able to see somebody go 75, 80. If somebody's able to get in 75, 80 pitches, well, that team should be set up for success.
And I think that was a number I was more so looking at with regards to today, because obviously this is the last game of the tournament. You're down in terms of arms. Who's a little more down than the other? One of the things I was looking at was Garrett Vanderventer, who pitched a couple of days ago for Jackson State against Bethune-Cookman. He went pretty deep into that ball game, and just from looking at that ball game, he might have saved Jackson State's bullpen a little bit more on the backside than Grambling's bullpen. So that's something that I'm a little concerned about with regards to where Grambling is with regards to their pitching depth.
And I'll give you one other thing that I noticed yesterday with the last 2 days with these two teams. It's like as they were making the pitcher change, whoever came out of the bullpen, they got their first batter. They may have gotten out their inning, but once they went back in their dugout and came back out, it's like their arms died real fast, and you had to go get them. And I think coaches were just kind of getting into it. Okay, give me 2-3 outs. Now let me get somebody fresh and get 10, 15 pitches out of them. Get these 2 outs out of them.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask this. You guys are talking about guys going. Grambling used 7. How many pitchers did Grambling use yesterday?
It was about 7. It was like 7 of them.
I mean, Coach Bear used everybody he could to win that game, and I think he finally found somebody, late or in the middle. 7 pitchers. Yeah, he used 7 pitchers yesterday. I mean,
nobody had more than 2 innings.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I had heard that Grambling's got a couple guys who have thrown at least 300 pitches in this tournament. Maybe the arm availability is going to be interesting. Who has a starter that is capable, of possibly getting in, getting in. Who do we have there in the background with you, Doc?
Got a couple guests here. How about we go to break and we let Doc bring on these new guests?
All right, sounds good. Again, just reminding everybody, SWAC championship game between Jackson State and Grambling is 1:00 Eastern on ESPN Plus. So we're going to take a short break, come back, and find out who we've got in the booth live from Rush Chandler Stadium on the campus of Georgia Tech. If you're in the area, make your way out. Make your way out to Blue Bloods in the SWAC. Are going to be battling for a championship this afternoon. You want to be in the house for this. You're watching the BCSN, our live SWAC pregame show. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6:00 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SWAC Baseball pre-show. Bryan Fulford and Charles, Charles, Doc, AD, and looks like you got a special guest there with you, Doc. Who is that? Who is that rattler there? Oh, we got a rattler and a tiger there. Who you got here?
Yeah, I brought in the heavy hitters, as you would say. I have one other than Bobby Sewell over at Florida A&M University, big-time baseball fan, athletics fan of FAMU in a lot of different ways and gets the work done. Obviously, take care of business in Atlanta. Then we have the VP of Athletics over here, Dr. Travion Scott, getting it done for Grambling, having a strong athletic year. You know, I do my top 5 ADs, and you wasn't in there last year. You were right there on 6, but I think you trying to find a way to maybe drop to number 1. You that high on the list?
Yes, sir.
Just not you. I'll sign it out there. You speak for yourself. We'll do it up there and do your accolades. Okay. But in all seriousness, what you've done to rebuild a proud program across the board in most sports, obviously you had to change in football and see what that looks like, but a lot of excitement there for a lot of people. But this year was a great year. The men's basketball program got over the hump, cut down the nets. Obviously, this is a program with an NIA championship. People forget that. Right. But in terms of NCAA, your men's program got to the tournament. I know that had to be exciting for a lot of people. But you are the architect at the time that it's got done. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I like to say I am. I mean, the reality of it is it's a group effort. And I think that the biggest thing for us in our department is that we stress two things, family and culture. And the reason why is because family sticks together and culture never graduates, right? So, you know, Coach Jackson, Dante Jackson on the men's basketball side has been a good coach for a long time. You know, he didn't hit his head and decide he wanted to coach last year when he split the regular season championship. You know, but my job is to be able to provide the resources and be able to assist along the way, and those support services that our sports need to go from good to great. And we have that conversation very often. You know, so Coach Jackson and his team did an outstanding job, you know, with the process of building to what you saw in the first four and then in the round of 64 versus a very good national runner-up team in Purdue. But hey, listen, look, we've done a great job across the board. You know, soccer won a regular season championship back-to-back years, lost in the SWAC championship game last year, won the SWAC championship and lost in the first round of the tournament at the University of Arkansas. Volleyball women's basketball. We went from 10-20 to 24-9 in 1 year, and I think we'll be up there this year. Coach Courtney Simmons is an incredible leader, motivator, and architect of talent. You know, she does a great job, not just acquiring talent and not just managing that talent, but also being a talent developer, and that's going to be key and critical for her as she seeks to ascend to higher heights on the women's basketball side. Softball, we had a disappointing year this year. Last year, we won 30 games for the first time in 30 years, right? And so, you know, again, we've been able to do some pretty special things in our non-revenue sector as well. Track and field, we hadn't quite got there yet with the numbers. But Jet Brown, one of our student athletes, qualified for nationals. That's the first time that's happened at Grambling State University since 1990. So, you know, just on the competitive side, academically, we graduated 55 student athletes. You know, they've done an incredible job. We had 150 student athletes with 3.0s. You know, just an outstanding job overall. But we've got to continue to grow. We've got some challenges in some areas where we need to grow facility-wise. We've got some challenges in some areas where we need to grow as far as that competitive excellence piece in tennis and bowling, volleyball, track and field, right? So we're looking now and being very intentional about, you know, up in those sports levels to match that of the baseballs, women's basketballs, men's basketball, and soccer. So we're excited about, you know, how far we've come. We're even more excited about the direction in which we're going, and things look to be bright on Exit 81.
One more question before I go to you, Bobby, in terms of just your thought of incorporating yourself in the conference and your thoughts on that, so you can think about that for a minute. But I want to ask you about this matchup. Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't get into this. Yeah. As I was looking at this, between 1959, think about this, 1959 to 2003, only Southern, Jackson State, and Grambling State won SWAC championships. It was a three-dog race during that time. The league office itself has even been known to refer to these schools as the Big Three. However, since 2004, though, 7 programs have won championships, suggesting greater competitiveness in the league. A lot of that has to do, obviously, with the expansion of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. Also, with the SWAC tournaments now including 8 schools, simply more lower-level seeded teams have opportunity to compete for a conference crown. This is kind of back to the old, but talk about your baseball program. Mm-hmm. Some people may argue, and you don't have to talk about this, it's not fair to you, but just as a media person, some people may argue that last year's team, top to bottom, may have been an overall better team, but better teams don't always win championships.
That's correct.
You play basketball yourself, and you know what that means. Correct. But something about this team, and I told you, Brian, when you came in here thinking about this, that Grambling was going to play a different level of baseball because of disappointment. And I've seen teams do that. Yeah. And when they get a chance to kind of get a taste of it, they think they're ready, but they're not quite ready for the moment. They come back with a different level of aspirational attainment. Talk about what your coach was able to do in these players, getting it done and getting themselves to play on Championship Sunday.
Well, I'll give you a little background. I'm not surprised at all that we're here. I think we took a little bit of a different route. Obviously, we've got a significant amount of injuries on the pitching side, and so we're having to rely on our bats. But I'll tell you one thing about Grambling baseball. it doesn't get the credit and the recognition that it deserves from a traditional standpoint. The tradition of excellence within the baseball program is significant. As far as this team, I thought the challenge, especially yesterday, because we've traditionally struggled with Florida A&M, was if the moment was going to be too big. I think everybody on the periphery knew we belonged.
Right.
And our guys knew they belonged. They just had to show it. Yeah. And, I thought probably the first 9 outs would be a good indicator of where we were. I thought we got out early. Even though we gave those runs back, it put us in a space where we knew we could compete. And for all intents and purposes, look, you're playing the defending champions. The pressure was on them. And I thought our guys played well. In terms of our guys, grit. It's 100% grit. They've been disappointed and faced disappointment when we had teams that were, quite frankly, more talented. And as a former student athlete, I can tell you I've been on some of the most talented teams who never won anything, and some less talented teams who were indeed teams who bought into the message and the motivation of what the prevailing sentiment is from a team standpoint. Kind of taking us further, and that's what's happened here. We've got timely hitting. We've got, man, what can you say about Cam Buford? Right? What can you say? I wouldn't pitch to him. And
that's what you say.
It's and he and I had a conversation after the Bama State game, and he said, "Look, I wasn't gonna let us lose." I said, "Well, here's the thing. It wasn't about your bat. It was about your glove.
Yep.
That's what saved us at Bama State." And so, yesterday when he came to the plate, look, they're not gonna pitch to you, man. Why would they pitch to you? And they did. And he sat on, looked like a changeup, and it just seemed like it was a curveball.
And right into the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
Look at the highlights. It's still right. Well, speaking on Cam, his father he's an alpha man.
Oh, Jesus.
And
here we go.
Here we
go.
We had a talk before the game about some of the things, and surely, Grambling, I give them credit. Your team played us tough this year. We split 3-3 when you look at it. But you said a mouthful. The best team doesn't always win. I thought there were opportunities. We had a chance to really put you guys away, but I told them during the 6th, 7th, 8th inning.
That was the time.
If we didn't put them away,
that was the time.
You were going to lead to confidence. And that's when I saw your team pick it up when they got those outs. And we had a little buzzard luck. When you think about, well, to me, you have to throw a little coaching in there, because the guy, a left-handed batter up the bat, and you got a guy full base, and you got a guy on first, he got to allow that ball to get through. He's got to be watching. He got to be taught to know that on a hard hit, it's coming that way. So you got to be alert and be, as you run, allow the ball to get through, because that was big. And then there was another instance where we had a line drive hit that went through the infield in the air. Our third base runner should have never left the bag, because there was another opportunity there to easily put you guys away. But to give Grambling's credit, Coach Perret made all the right moves.
Great point.
He made all the right moves when we had Basato up with two bases on.
Yep.
He put him on. He had an open base. When you get to Cam Buford, there was no way you pitched to him on in that situation.
Not this weekend.
Well, any other weekend. Because he's your all-time home run hitter. Number 10, he has the power to hit the ball out after. But he's a slower runner, and you had opportunity for either play a force out anywhere or a double play, being that you had a slower runner at the plate. So I thought those were key moments that, me personally, I thought coaching let us down in the key situation. I think our guys played as well as they could under the circumstance, but there were key moments that the right decision would have put them in position to be a winner on yesterday. And like I said, to your coach credit, he made all the right moves at the right time, and they got a lot of talent.
Well, you get the sense of it being a de facto chess match. I think you made reference to those middle innings where you guys had the opportunity to, quite frankly, put us away.
Yes.
I felt like that early on. We were up 4 or 5 runs. We had the bases loaded. We could have went up 7, 8 runs, and We didn't.
And I know our team.
Yeah.
And if you look at Florida A&M batting, we average 9-10 runs a game.
Yeah.
And anytime you're doing that, you really should be a dominant team.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we've had since Coach Shook era, we've averaged, if you go look at the history, 7.6 runs ERA.
Okay.
And that's not good.
Okay.
And because it doesn't lend itself to late innings when you got a little small lead or 1 point game, because now you're almost afraid of your pitching. And yesterday, the pitching, Williams pitched a good game. Really, I think it was more decision making in key spots that because
That managerial key spot.
Yes, because honestly, he shouldn't have had to pitch to Williams. There was a couple of incidents. We had a couple of errors too, because I had counted the batters down. I said we'd never get back to Cam, right? We weren't
When he
supposed
struck
to.
out, I said the same thing.
We were supposed to get another bat this tournament, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I said the same thing.
But once that happened, I said, boy, I walked away. I said, we're in trouble. And I hate to say it, but I felt that way because when I saw your team,
you are beyond a fan.
yes,
You're critical about the game, and I love folks that can be that way.
Yeah.
They can be fans of the game, their team, or the league, but they're also critical of the game in key situations, and you can see shifts or key
yes,
moments in there. I want to ask you about this, though, as I come to you, Bobby, and get in here, is the expansion and coming into the SWAC. What were your thoughts of it, and what are your thoughts now in terms of overall, not just baseball?
Well, overall, I thought it was the best move. Competitive wise, it's very challenging because the competitiveness of all the SWAC teams. Now we haven't been fully accepted, as they say, but we're gonna earn our way, right?
after the last 2 years with championship, trust me. They might say what they want to. You win some championships.
That's the
And
way.
if you look at football, we only had 2 losses in the last 3 years.
That's right.
Baseball, we won a championship. We've been right here today. I mean, easily the second. During the regular season, Grambling easily was the number 1 seed. If you go look at the actual records, all the games weren't played on that west side. So that didn't give a true indication of who was the number 1 seed. And I suspect that I went back and looked at footage that Grambling was. And I'll tell you another team who had potential, Southern. To me, I thought Southern had one of the best pitchers, the little left-handed kid that pitched as relief. He came in against us. He was a heck of a pitcher. But, when I look at you guys in the SWAC, it's very competitive in every aspect. We're getting back now. We got a new basketball coach.
Yep.
And we had an opportunity this year, even against Grambling, to win those games. But I thought the wrong moves, kind of
Coaching in this league, talent is necessary.
Yeah.
The coaching in this league to get to the top separates you in terms of championship has become better than ever.
Well, yes.
Right?
I mean, you think
We've had a long legacy of great coaches through here, as you know, obviously, and we've gotten back to that.
Yeah.
In terms of the last thing I put on here is also the competitiveness of the ADs and VPs.
well,
Their colleagues in some areas.
that's when
it's starting to separate folks too.
Well,
as the ADs and the VPs.
Well, that makes a
They can
difference.
make strategic moves to make sure their coaches and players get as much as possible within their, budget and outside to get additional things. You start to see in terms of separating teams.
Well, see, that's the one problem, fam, you have. We've had several ADs, and to be honest with you, I haven't had a liking to none of the ADs of recent. I mean, being real, and it's for a good cause. I mean, because when I look at experience, when you start talking about evaluating coaches, you have to have people who've been in the games, right? You have to be able to evaluate and understand what are the needs of the teams, right? Yep. We can't be so emotional about how we do things. It's got to be real needs. It got to be fulfilled, right? So when you look at football championship and you lose your coach, those kind of things are very significant, right? So when you look at AD, that is the CEO of your athletics, right?
Yeah.
And they got to be able to lead, right? Now, we had a football championships. We had indoor track girls won it. Softball team was in the finals. I mean, you look across the cross country won, volleyball last 2 years. I mean, we're right there.
Right.
at the cusp. But if we get the right leadership at Florida, and it starts top down, not only with just AD, it starts with your president, right? So we got some issues to address right now at Florida A&M, and when we get those things straightened out, we're gonna be tough because it's not hard to recruit in Florida, and that's the one thing that we have an advantage. And so, I mean, some of the other SWAC guys say, "Man, there's no way we're gonna be able to, compete with you guys once you guys get." Well, if you look at our football year, the transfers that we had come in, we're gonna be even tougher this year in football than we were last year.
I'll get both of y'all out of here
Yeah.
on this one. I wanted to talk a little bit about presidential support. And what does it mean for VP of Athletics?
Everything,
AD, right?
everything.
You just transitioned from a president. I know that literally brought you in and made the final check mark in terms of you becoming a VP of Athletics. And this is after a long surgeon of being able to get to the lead role. So I know that was very important to you, that you had somebody that believed in you after a lot of folks and you gotten pretty close. But you found
Hello, Doc. Doc, I lost your audio here for a second. I know Drew's back there. Drew, can we hear? Can you check something on the audio situation? I think it's overall. Can I get a mic check from somebody? Hold on. Nah, Drew, not hearing anything. Lost there. Hold on, wait a second.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Yep, I got it now. Now we got it. Now we got it.
Right.
Let me follow up with that question.
Yeah, finish up with your question there and what you were saying, Doc, because I think we
Yeah,
lost.
we'll transition back out of that. I was in the middle of asking the question in terms of leadership as we got through that. And not just from an AD or VP position, but in terms of a president or chancellor. Obviously, I was saying that you came in and got your nod about moving in terms of being deputy and second in charge to actually leading the program. A lot of that was because of President Gallo with Grambling State. He's transitioned into a Louisiana role in terms of multiple students, which is significant that we have presidents in the SWAC that had the ability to make that move. But talk about, is it important to have this support from a president chancellor? If it is, how much?
It's critical. I think, President Gallo's influence, the leadership, in 70 years.
We lost the audio again, guys. Sorry about that, guys. You're watching our live audio issues. It happens sometimes when you do things live. Let's see. We'll get it here squared away. Still not hearing anything. It's faint. I mean, I'm not hearing much.
We'll kind of pause here because we're getting ready for the game. The guys out here warming up, and with that, I'll give you a final thought in terms of just, as you were saying, how important it was. You were right in the middle of it. It's critical. Yeah, it's critical. I think.
Being executive vice president and COO. Now that doesn't mean he's President Gallo. He's President LaMelle, but he is every bit involved in every process, and every bit as supportive, to the Department of Athletics as President Gallo was as the president and still is as the president and CEO of the University of Louisiana system. So, our meetings have been great. President LaMelle's foresight is amazing. The way he approaches things, both of us, share, in our love and appreciation for data and making data-driven decisions. It's been good so far, and I look forward to continuing to grow the relationship and growing the department and growing Grambling State University overall.
Well, I'm going to say congratulations on what you've done thus far. I know there's more to come, but I also want to say thank you in terms of allowing me to ask tough questions in terms of that, and they're not always on the mic.
But I'm talking about I can call up there and ask some critical questions so I can inform the masses out there about what's really going on behind the scenes in terms of not just making Grambling better, but making the SWAC better, making the HBCU better. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your friendship in terms of what that looks like.
Hey, Doc, before we close out, while we have Dr. Scott here, part of the breaking news that you broke is about the change in the scheduling for baseball. Can we ask, I don't know if it's unofficially, can we ask Dr. Scott this, or
let us know whether you can
okay. Well, but we got to ask because, we
There's
broke
no
that.
saying you're supposed to ask.
Okay. So, I mean, Dr. Scott, can you share any insights on the format change for baseball in that next year? It looks like more teams will get an opportunity to play each other, and every team will get to play 10 of the 11 opponents in at least one 3-game series. Doc, I got to hit you with this because somebody brought this up. We always talk about cost and the cost analysis, and that potentially preventing something like that from happening. So I'd love to hear from Dr. Scott maybe what changed in the mindset or the thinking among ADs or coaches.
Well, it's time to grow. You money can't always be the problem. I'm talking about President Gallo, and he would always talk about in his days in the Louisiana legislature when we asked questions, or a senator would come up to him and he'd say the answer is money. Now, what's the question, right? And so, we've got to continue to grow as a league. Those certain financial questions are still going to be prevalent. We won't avoid those. I'll just tell you my concern from a travel standpoint. I'll give you an example. I'm in rural North Louisiana. Everything for me is 2 flights, right? It's either to Atlanta or Dallas to Orlando, and then a drive to Daytona, for example, or it's a drive to Jackson to fly, or right. So it's any one of those variations. My worry and my concern is that if we fly to Bethune-Cookman and it rains out, I'm not coming back to Bethune-Cookman, right? But I think.
So how do you deal with the
right? So we've got to manage and be able to address those questions. But by and large, I think it's time, right? I mean, if we need to continue to grow as a league. I think it's a model for us. With the challenge I just outlined notwithstanding, is a good one. I think we should play Bethune-Cookman more. We should play Florida A&M more. We should play Alabama State more. We've never probably hadn't played Alabama A&M since I've been here, right? And so when you get to a tournament, you're less familiar with those teams, and it kind of catches you off guard. So I look forward to it. I think it's a good time and a great opportunity to make the move. I think from a structural standpoint, we probably need to iron some things out and unpack some things just to be sure, on what we do as far as supporting playing these teams. And by that, I mean, do we go from 80% now to 100%? Do we go from 80% to 90% of games played? So those are the questions that still have to be asked and answered. But I think by and large, it's come time now to compete across the league, from Texas all the way to Florida.
Well, since you mentioned money, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think the effects of this recent settlement with the NCAA? How would that affect FCS versus FBS?
I think it's going to create a divide between the haves and the have-nots. And
it's great.
Yeah, and if you look at the tiers, I mean, it's a lot of Power 5 schools that now are tier 2, tier 3, right? We're at Georgia Tech right now. And I think, with all of the bells and whistles of downtown Atlanta and, billion-dollar endowments, I think they're tier 3, right? And so there's a bigger caveat now between a Georgia Tech and maybe a LSU, for example, an Ohio State, for example, a Florida State.
They're separating not only from us, but it's separating from each other.
Yeah. I fully expect, the federal government to step in and try to regulate it.
Okay.
With all of the different, state legislators and different rules in every state, which, to be honest, benefits the state institutions.
But how does that, affect the athletes? When you're looking at talking about the university being to pay the athletes now, I mean, come on, we have struggling meeting the bills that we need to pay now. We can't even get in cost situations.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I've got quite a few friends at the Power 5 level, and they're scared to death because now it's putting more pressure on their overall budget. It's putting more pressure on their development folks who now doesn't have the responsibility of just raising $20 million. Now you forecasting out what it's going to cost to be able to pay your student athletes.
Another
It's another.
Sports, that's why you're gonna have a problem because you got the general thing that you have to be, non-revenue making sports, like a baseball, tennis.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The minimum for Division I is 14 sports, and obviously you got to have some proportionality across the board in terms of gender equity in Title IX. And so the sports that are going to be most adversely affected is baseball. Yeah, and the reason is because it represents 30 to 40 student athletes, and they're males, right? So the balancing act of female sports, the scales are kind of tipped a little bit because football is such a large roster composition.
We saw that during COVID, right? A lot of other student athletes and other sports complain about why the football athletes get what they get. But when COVID went down and there was no football,
there's no revenue.
Everybody got cut.
That's right.
A lot of people lost scholarships.
That's right.
So, we got major issues.
Right.
So we got a lot of things to deal with moving forward.
Let me ask you this last one back to baseball in terms of that. Can you provide us anticipation when we'll get some word about the scheduling? Because I know some of this still has to be hashed out.
Without certainty, I would guess summer meetings.
Okay.
We would have some additional discussions, and if not, in terms of having a model, at least a discussion that would dictate what the model looks like moving forward.
As soon as you get that, let me know.
Okay.
We'll see if we can come on and talk about that, because I'm sure, as you know, the baseball fans in terms of SWAC are here, and people might not realize how much energy is involved in baseball.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of folks' hearts in football, no question about that. Basketball does what it does, both men's and women's. But baseball and softball has a lot of energy and a lot of impact. So there are a lot of fans that are hungry for that information. So we'd love to be able to get it to it. Bryan, any last thing that you want to get out of here?
No, just want to say thank you for your time, Dr. Scott. I'll be rooting for Grambling. I'd rather lose to the champions than to see Jackson State win. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
I appreciate the support nonetheless.
That's it. I'm sorry. I had to get that in there. Any final, do we want to close out, Doc and Drew, or do we want to kind of, I know time is tight.
Yeah, we need to go ahead and get ready to close out and relinquish the room to make sure the folks can get in.
Okay, so we know who Dr. Scott's rooting for. What's your prediction, Doc? What's your prediction championship game?
I got Grambling. I think it's just their time. I think they've been waiting. Those bats are just something serious about me. Obviously, in a lot of ways, this is a rivalry game itself. So a lot of momentum, a lot of reason for you to focus. You just never know. I will say this before I let Bobby get his in there, and then obviously Drew and Charles will talk about their thoughts on this. I did have an invitation with Jackson State fans out there. Ashley Robinson had an invitation, but we're not going to blame him because he spoiled us last night in terms of giving us a gift. So I'll leave it at that.
I'll leave it right there.
Well, my thoughts is, it's going to be a lot of great athleticism going on out here today. Jackson State like to play small ball, put the ball on the ground and run. But I mean, when you look, Grambling competed against us. If they stay at that level today, I think they should be successful. But I won't choose a team, but I'll say Grambling has the edge in my eyes in terms of from top to bottom.
Do I get input?
Yeah.
Please do.
I'm going to state the obvious, right? But
Uh-huh.
I think the key for us is how good can we pitch it? If we can put zeros on the board and our bats remain consistent, I think if we don't, it's going to be hard. But championship games never are easy. But we've exhausted every single arm that we could possibly exhaust. But I talked about grit earlier. If our guys stay the course, I like our chances.
But if you can't get right in, you might.
Drew, I hope my volume is okay.
Yes.
First of all, Bryan, you know how you and I like to do it. I've got the over and under is 15 and a half runs in this game combined. Right now, I'm going with the over right now. And I say that it's probably going to be a 3-2, 4-2 ball game. just because I said I'm going with the over 15 and a half as far as runs scored today. Also, it's something about Jackson State's style that if it is a low-scoring, close, competitive ball game, the way Jackson State can manufacture runs just lends itself to a tough, hard-fought victory for Jackson State. So I know they don't believe this in Jackson, Mississippi, but you got a rattler. Pick a Jackson State. But I could hedge my bet to say the eye of the Tigers and the Tigers will win, but I'm not going to do that.
I think it comes down to style play, and I like Jackson State style play and their speed in terms of manufacturing runs. Like I said, if it is a close contest, I think the edge sort of goes to Jackson State in that regards. And I think you all touched on the obvious in terms of the pitching depth of Grambling, where they are. I do want to say this in terms of a lot of people have been texting me in regards to Jackson State baseball. It's significant for Jackson State playing for SWAC Baseball Championships. There are a lot of individuals who I grew up with who idolized playing for this Jackson State baseball team. We're talking about especially through the 80s and through the 90s. There were a lot of young African-American guys who wanted to play for Coach Bob Brady. So it's significant to see Jackson State baseball in this championship format here. And I do want to say, there are a lot of eyes on Coach Omar Johnson in regards to, for Jackson State. It's not just getting there, but just getting the ring as well. So it's going to be a huge game. I'm looking forward to it.
Last thing I'll say before I give you the last word, Brian, is just throwing a little history here. As you know, the SWAC was established in 1920, and the conference is known to have sponsored baseball as a league sport until around the uncertain times of the Great Depression of World War II, before sanctioning again in 1949. Even earlier, SWAC Power Wallet College shut down its baseball program after the 1932 season, despite featuring a rising star infielder from Chicago area, in Pat Patterson. Just wanted to give a little more SWAC history and fact to make sure we always pay attention to our past as we celebrate the current and look forward to the future.
And I just want to, this is unofficial. I want to assure Avis Heath that Charles Bishop will be in the Jackson State dugout. So you don't have to worry about any shenanigans or jinxes or anything like that. I know that'll happen. So it should be good. A lot of people should be a good game. 1 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Plus. Grambling, Jackson State.
As they have removed our crew that's done everything all week. Kudos to Charles and the rest of the folks, Simone, all those that got it done in terms of that. But they bring in their own crew to call the championship game, and led by Jay Walker. So shout out to Jay in terms of bringing the announcement.
Only miss this tip if I play.
Not touching it. Not touching it.
I always miss this tip if I play.
Hey, I tried to be nice, but she's doing WNBA. She's working. She
might be across town right now.
That's right.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, everybody, make sure. Thank you for checking out the pre-show, and we hope everybody enjoys the game. Be interesting to find out will we get a close game, or will we get a high-scoring affair with drama in the end? So make sure to tune in 1 o'clock Eastern. Get your popcorn ready. 2 of the Blue Bloods in SWAC baseball going at it in Atlanta, Georgia, Rush Chandler Stadium on the campus of Georgia Tech University. For Charles and Doc and AD, again, we thank Dr. Travion Scott and Bobby Swoop for joining us. You've been watching the BCSN SportsWrap along with Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab from Atlanta, Georgia. You guys be well. Make sure you enjoy the game, and make sure to follow the SWAC on social media. Make sure you guys tweet out the SWAC for all of the great coverage from the SWAC Digital Network and everybody with the SWAC. We thank them for the hospitality and everything that goes along with putting this game on. So we look forward to it. And make sure you're following the Black College Sports Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MyBCSN1. And go download the podcast, BCSN Pod Zone, everywhere you listen to podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on and so forth. All right. Good night. Good day.
Shout
Have a
out to
great
the
day.
black and old gold.
All right, guys.
But you stay hard.